Hi YouTube, in this video I'm going to show you step by step all the stages that it took me to make a Garthim from the dark crystal. A Garthim is a kind of crab-like creature, kind of creepy looking but quite cool. But first I'd like to just quickly thank Milliput because they are now sponsoring this channel and they very kindly sent me these 2 boxes of Milliput this week, and so there's 20 packs here altogether. So hopefully this will be enough to make our Garthim. If you haven't used Milliput before, it's a 2-part putty. You mix the 2 parts together and it sets in about 4 hours rock solid. Okay, on with the sculpt. So I started by twisting this aluminium wire around itself into this really sophisticated looking armature. I don't know, it's really basic, but it should be strong enough. The bit at the bottom will be clipped off later, but it's just to give it some stability. Next, it's really easy just to get some tin foil and just crumple it on to your wire frame, and this gives you just the basic form of the Garthim. Okay, this is how I make the back plates for the Garthim. Nice ridge down the middle and then just fairly symmetrical, and you can see this is nice and flat on a bit of tin foil on a baking tray. You can also see the 2 parts of Milliput up there ready to be mixed together. Next, to get this nice ridge all the way around the edge, I just go around and press with my finger. Next, I started covering the tin foil with some Milliput. So you just press it on, only needs to be a couple of millimeters thick because it sets rock hard. But you can see here, it's very rough at this stage. I'll refine it all later. Then after that first bit had set, I carried on and covered the back of him as well. The nice thing about Milliput, because it takes 4 hours to set completely, it means that when you're about halfway, about sort of a couple of hours in, you can peel off one of these back plates from the tin foil and then you can just shape it like I've done here to give it a more 3-dimensional form. And then you can see I've just used a few Milliput boxes just to rest it on while it sets for the rest of the time, and it'll be rock solid and I can add it to the sculpt. Okay, this is just a very basic head shape, just with a ridge along the top and a couple of kind of eyebrow ridges, and I'll come back to this and refine it later. This just shows you a couple more of the back plates. So you've got the tail, and then the next one is going to be the plate that goes above the tail. This is what they look like on the actual sculpt. You can see as long as you put them on before they dry, you can stick them on and you can also curve them around the form of the body. I've also put his head on, and although it's small at this stage, I'll actually be adding more to widen it later and add a lot more detail to it. This is with a couple of the bigger back plates added, so this is where a lot of my Milliput is going to go on this sculpt, making these big back plates. They are quite heavy, but I think it'll be definitely worth it in the end because it'll be nice and solid. This is with the last couple of plates added, and it really starts to take shape. This is what I really love about the Garthim, is they have this real kind of trilobite look to them, or sort of like a big giant woodlouse or something like that. Next I did this skin texture on the side of him. This is a skin texture that I like to use occasionally. It's like a polygonal kind of skin texture where you're making sort of random shapes, some hexagon, some pentagon, all different kind of little shapes that all kind of merge in together, trying to make it look random. And then once you've done all those shapes, you just take a ball stylus tool and you just press it into the center of each one to give a little dip. Okay, here's a bit of detail in the chest area. So you've got a few things that look sort of a bit rib-like, and then you've got various kind of plates and things, all done in slightly different ways, but basically just making shapes, adding them on, and then just pressing at the edges to get them to join on to what's there already. Next I wanted to form the joints of the arms, so you can see here where I've cut through, and you can see the wire and the tinfoil are still in the middle there. But this allows me to bend the arm into various positions. And to do that, I just use this little tiny Tamiya craft saw. These are really handy. If you haven't got one of these, I thoroughly recommend you getting one, because they're just really good for this kind of fine detail work. This little bit of simple twisted wire is going to become the claw eventually. So this is just the starting point. You can see I've just twisted it around the first half. Those 2 bits there are going to go up into the arm eventually to give it more support when I'm sticking it on. and then the thin bit of wire at the end will become the main claw. So here's the rough shape with the Milliput added to the wire. Later on I'll use some sandpaper to refine this, but I'll let it set first. It's important to keep double checking things for scale when you're doing this against the rest of your sculpt. So Garthim has a completely different looking hand on the other side, which has got 3 kind of claws on it. So this is the armature that I've made for that one. And then I just added some Milliput to make the initial kind of hand shape, and then the 3 claws can be added after this. These are the armatures that I've made for the legs. It's just twisted wire, and I've made them too long to start with on this side. Got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 legs, and then this piece goes and joins to the body, and then you've got this little extra one, which is like a sort of spike that comes out the top. And you can see after you bend the wires, this gives you your rough leg shapes, and then you can just snip off the extra long bits of wire that you don't need anymore. This is the 2 done, looking nice and symmetrical. A bit of tin foil added for the leg spikes. Next I sculpted the tops of the leg spikes with all these kind of ridges and bumps on them, and I did the first sections for the legs. This is just to show the underneath of those sections where I've joined basically all of the top parts of the legs together. Here's the claw with the thinner top section added. Again, very basic at this stage, but I just wanted to get the main shape. I've made these holes in the bottom section ready for some extra spiky bits to be added later. At this stage I drilled a couple of holes in the body of the Garthim, and this is to allow me to add these leg sections on. So you can see here he's just rested up against my chair at this point, and I haven't actually milliputted anything on, so nothing is set, they're just positioned on loosely. You can see the claw there in the background. So again, it's quite nice at stages like this. You can see I've added quite a lot more detail to it at this point, but it's quite nice to be able to position anything that you've done and check that it's working alright size wise with the rest of the sculpt. This is him after the Milliput had been added to join his legs on. I left him up against the chair until the Milliput had set, and then I brought him out, and to my surprise he's standing up already, which is brilliant because the shell is so heavy that I thought he was going to be too heavy at the back and he was going to just keep falling backwards. But even at this stage he's freestanding. Excellent news. And you can imagine once the claw is on the front, that's going to add quite a bit more weight on anyway, so that'll give him even more balance. Okay, quite a bit more detail has been added to him now, and obviously I've got the claws on as well. You can see the face details here I've started to build up. I've added some eye sockets just with a ball stylus, so dents there for the eyes to go in. You can see a lot of these kind of frill details at the edges of each joint. Also, you know, things like ridges, little bumps, all kind of merged in and softened at the edges. There's some claws there, all joined on. Here's some more kind of lumpy textures on these bits of his legs. And I think these are all going to look really good painted. But even at this stage, you know, you can tell if it starts to look good at this stage, you know, like the painting is going to just bring them out even more. But I'm really looking forward to painting this one. There are a couple more claws that I've got to make to go on his kind of chest area, but I'll show you those later on in the video. These are 2 other claws that I've made separately that are going to go on the top of his carapace, and you can see the 2 eyes that I've made there as well. Just 2 little balls that are basically the same size as the end of the ball stylus that I've used to make the eye sockets, so that I know that they'll fit into the gaps. So you can see the eye sockets here again, that you can see where I've made them with this ball stylus, and you can see where those little balls that I've just made will fit in. It's really nice to kind of make those little balls, roll them in your hand, and then as they start to set, as the Milliput sets, you just keep rolling them more and more, and they just get rounder and rounder. This shows where I've been adding bumps on the carapace. So this is just a case of making a lot of kind of like oval bumps, and then just add them on, and then just pressing at the edges to get them to merge onto the shell. and I'm really pleased with how this is looking. Also, look, I've added these two bits, so it's really good to make the claws separately, let them dry, then you can just add a bump of Milliput and you can just set them in. You can also see the eyes here, look. So I just glued those into those sockets, just with a little bit of super PVA glue. I also decided to completely redo the top of his head and give him a new head section. So this is the beginnings of it, but I think even with this I want to widen it even more. Remember I said about little claw sections that had to go in the chest area? Well, this is how I made those, just on a piece of wire. So I started with my piece of wire, made the middle sections first, let them dry, and then I added the claws and the other sections, and then you're able to bend them because they're separate on the wire. And here you can see I've just drilled some holes into the body of the Garthim, and then I can just position these claws how I want them, and then I just glue them on. So yeah, there's 4 claws. The 2 bigger ones go at the bottom and stick out like that, and then the other 2 go above those. But I like the fact that they're separate as well, so I can always reposition them if I want to in the future. But I think, yeah, once these are glued, they'll be nice because the top 2 will stick out slightly more than the bottom 2, and it'll just give a slightly more 3-dimensional feel to all of that chest area. It's often all these little details that make such a difference on a sculpt like this. Okay, so this is how he turned out at the end of the sculpting process. I am really pleased with this end result, and I'm really looking forward to painting him. You can see when I turn him around like this, the shell is so heavy, and it gives this kind of weird optical illusion, like he looks like he should be toppling backwards, but he's really stable on these little legs. And it gives, I suppose, another optical illusion because he's got such a big gap underneath him. He looks almost like he's sort of hovering a little bit. So that's really cool as well. I'm really pleased with that. But yeah, the painting process is going to be really good fun to do, and I can't wait. So if you want to see that, I will do another video on that, and I'll link it to this one, so you can just go straight to that at the end of this one if you want to see what it ends up looking like. But you can see everything kind of moves independently as well. So where I cut the arms and repositioned them, and you've got the wire in between all the joints, I decided to do that on quite a few other places as well, like his thin legs at the bottom, and you can see it just makes everything a little bit springy. So like his front claw here, they all move just a little bit, and it just means that nothing's really thin, you know, that can snap or break or anything. I mean, it wouldn't anyway because it's got the wire inside it, but it's just nice that in the future, if I want to, if I decide I want to put him in a slightly different position or something, I can. It just gives me a bit of freedom, really. And you can see underneath here is a bit rough looking under his feet and things, but you're not going to see that anyway. Like, the main thing is he'll be stood up and you'll always view him from above, really, so I'm not too fussed about that. By the time everything's painted, he's going to be a very dark colour anyway, so a lot of that will get hidden. And I think all of these details, I really want to bring these out with some dry brushing, so yeah, I think the paint stages are going to be really good fun. Also, to hide all these gaps where you've got all the tin foil and bits of wire, they'll be painted, which will hide them a bit anyway, but then there are tufts of fur and things that have got to be added to this as well, which again will really add to the appearance of him, I think. Okay, another massive thank you to Milliput for sponsoring me. If you haven't tried Milliput yourself, go out and get yourself a pack and give it a try. I think once you've tried it once, you'll see how good it is and you'll want to use it more in the future. Don't forget to watch the next video if you want to see this thing painted. Hit the link at the end and hit subscribe if you want to see more videos that I post in the future. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.